look like you need to go to the dentist. You need to look like you need to brush your teeth. You look like you need hygiene. You look like you need help. Tell your man 50 send you an ounce or something, yo.
So I knew I was okay. He sold 11 million records. He had deals with JayZ in them, but JayZ ain't gonna never. Dude, I always tell him all the time, JayZ ain't treating you like this.
Oh, he definitely like playing. You know, this nigga.
JayZ might not even say hard as all.
So we just had a lit. JayZ will never take you to a party like this.
It only took one comment to turn a casual hip-hop conversation into a full-scale temperature check. One name said out loud. One comparison that should have stayed in the drafts. And suddenly the timeline froze like someone unplugged the O cord. At a family cookout, JimJones mentioned JayZ. Uncle Murda heard it, and 50 Cent didn't even have to clear his throat. Because when Uncle Murda steps in, it's never loud for no reason. It's quiet, surgical, and disrespectful in the most educated way possible. This wasn't screaming. This wasn't chest thumping. This was a reminder, the kind that lands harder than a diss track because it sounds like common sense wrapped in authority. The internet didn't ask questions, it reacted. Clips spread, comment sections ignited, and suddenly a casual opinion turned into a cultural audit about respect, hierarchy, and who gets to talk spicy when certain names enter the room. JayZ didn't respond. 50 Cent stayed silent. And somehow that silence made everything louder. Because when legends don't speak, it's usually because somebody else already said exactly what needed to be said. If you thought hip-hop debates were just podcasts and opinions now, this made the Kardashians look like a whisper-only retreat. The moment Uncle Murda spoke, the conversation stopped being casual and started being corrective. Not loud, not aggressive, just firm enough to let everyone know a line had been crossed. And there was no pretending it didn't happen. JimJones said what he said. JayZ's name entered the chat like it was free game. And Murda immediately reminded everyone that not all names sit at the same table. This wasn't a diss. It wasn't even beef. It was something more uncomfortable. A check delivered calmly. Like someone explaining house rules to a guest who started acting too familiar. Murda didn't insult JimJones. He didn't raise his voice. He did something far more damaging. He questioned whether JimJones belonged in that particular conversation at all. And in hip-hop, questioning placement is lethal because legacy talk isn't opinion talk. It's not barbershop debate energy. It's sacred ground where history, numbers, influence, and timing all matter. JimJones has always been confident, outspoken, and unapologetic about his journey. Nobody argues that. But confidence turns dangerous the moment it starts rewriting the hierarchy instead of respecting it. Uncle Murda saw that instantly. Not because JayZ needs anyone to defend him, the man's catalog defends itself, but because Murda understood. The ripple effect. This wasn't just about Jay, this was about proximity. About association. About how quickly a comment about JayZ becomes a sideswipe at 50 Cent without saying his name out loud. And Murda wasn't letting that slide. His response didn't feel emotional. It felt instructional. Like someone pausing the room to say, let's get something clear before this goes any further. He broke down the logic, the comparison, and the audacity with the kind of clarity that makes the original statement sound weaker the longer you think about it. That's when fans leaned in. Not because of drama, but because they recognized authority when they heard it. Murda wasn't speaking like a fan or a troll. He was speaking like someone who understands the architecture of hip-hop, who built what, who sustained what, and who doesn't get to casually rearrange the blueprint. The sarcasm was subtle but surgical. No jokes. No insults. Just calm disbelief that the comparison even existed. And that disbelief carried more weight than any shouted rebuttal ever could. Timelines reacted immediately. Not with confusion, but with recognition. People knew exactly what Murda was doing. He wasn't starting a fight. He was ending a conversation before it got disrespectful. And that energy spreads fast. Online. Comment sections split instantly. One side argued JimJones was just expressing his truth, that hip-hop should allow space for confidence and self-belief. The other side said truth doesn't override context, and confidence doesn't cancel history. And hip-hop fans do not play when it comes to history. Blogs rushed in like clockwork. Headlines didn't hesitate. Uncle Murda checks JimJones. Murda defends 50 Cent. JimJones gets corrected over JayZ talk. And once that framing locks in, Nuance gets escorted out the building. What made this sting harder was Murda's tone. He didn't sound angry. He sounded certain. That's the difference between opinion and authority. Anyone can argue. Not everyone can correct without sounding defensive. And then there was the silence from 50 Cent. That silence mattered more than anything, Murda said. Because when 50 stays quiet, it usually means one of two things. Either he agrees completely, or he's enjoying the fact that someone else just said what he didn't need to say himself. Fans clocked that immediately.
If Murda felt comfortable
stepping in this decisively, what conversations happened behind the scenes? What did he hear that made him feel this wasn't just another opinion floating in the wind? Because people don't move this fast unless they believe something crossed from commentary into disrespect. The deeper layer was loyalty. Murda wasn't just defending 50 Cent as a person. He was defending a lineage. A generation of hip-hop where certain names are benchmarks, not discussion starters. JayZ isn't a comparison, he's a reference point. And Murda made that distinction crystal clear without ever having to spell it out. JimJones supporters tried to contextualize the original remarks, saying they were being exaggerated, misunderstood, or taken out of context. But context doesn't survive momentum. Once Murda spoke, the internet decided the room had been corrected. And when the internet agrees someone misread the room, that judgment sticks longer than facts ever could. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. JimJones built his career on boldness and confidence, but boldness looks fragile when it's challenged by calm authority. Murda didn't need theatrics. His restraint was the flex. By the end of the day, the conversation wasn't even about JayZ anymore. It was about judgment, about timing, about whether JimJones underestimated how fast someone would step in and reframe the entire narrative. Once Uncle Murda's words settled into the timeline, the conversation stopped pretending to be about opinions and turned into a full-on loyalty audit. This is the stage where hip-hop debates stop being philosophical and start being positional. Nobody cared what JimJones meant anymore. They cared about what he thought he could say and who he thought would let it slide. Reaction videos flooded in, but not with screaming or theatrics. These were nodding head reactions, long pauses, people rewinding Murda's points like they were listening for hidden messages. That's when you know a check landed. When folks don't rush to clap back, they sit with it. The biggest shift came when fans reframed JimJones' comments as ambition dressed up as legacy talk. And hip-hop loves ambition, until ambition starts stepping on monuments. Murda's response made it feel like Jim wandered into a room where the plaques on the wall aren't negotiable. The internet is ruthless about hierarchy, even when it pretends not to be. Memes followed, but they weren't goofy. They were pointed. Screenshots of Murda's calm delivery paired with captions like "know when to listen." JayZ's name floating above the whole thing like a protected artifact. 50 Cent implied without ever being mentioned. It felt less like comedy and more like reminder culture. Then came the artist reactions, which always complicate everything. Some rappers stayed silent, and that silence was read as agreement. Others liked posts without commenting, the digital equivalent of nodding without wanting to be quoted. A few tried to soften the narrative with "everyone's entitled to their opinion" takes, and those got cooked immediately. Neutrality during hierarchy debates gets treated like cowardice online. JimJones supporters doubled down, saying, "Hip-hop should allow confidence and self-belief." That argument didn't die, it just got boxed in. Murda's framing didn't deny confidence, it challenged context. And context is the one thing the internet won't let slide once it's been highlighted. The conversation widened fast. People started digging up old interviews, past quotes, historic moments, stacking them like receipts. Not against Jim personally, but against the idea that legacy can be re-ranked through confidence alone. Murda didn't need to do that work. The internet did it for him. What made this phase dangerous was how quiet it stayed. No diss records, no insults, no threats. Just an unspoken agreement that a boundary had been enforced. Quiet enforcement hits harder than loud conflict because it feels permanent. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. JimJones built a career on boldness and bravado, but bravado looks different when it's met with composure. Murda never raised his voice. He didn't chase clout. He didn't repeat himself. And that restraint turned his words into authority. And hovering over everything was the 50-cent factor. His silence got louder by the hour. Fans speculated endlessly. Was he letting Murda handle it because he agreed completely? Was he waiting for Jim to respond before stepping in? Or was he enjoying the fact that the room had already been corrected without him lifting a finger? In hip-hop, silence from someone like 50 isn't emptiness, it's evaluation. When he doesn't respond immediately, it's usually because he's deciding whether the situation even deserves his voice. That uncertainty made the moment heavier. JimJones faced a choice, and the internet knew it. Respond and risk validating Murda's critique, or stay quiet and let the correction settle. Clap back too hard and you look defensive. Say nothing and people assume you accepted the check. Timing mattered more than content now. Blogs leaned into that suspense. Headlines shifted from reporting to anticipation. What's Jim's next move? Will 50 speak? Does this turn into something bigger? At that point, the story stopped being about facts and became about expectation. Fans argued strategy like armchair generals. Some said Jim should ignore it and keep moving. Others said silence would look like folding. A few insisted doubling down was the only way to save face. None of them agreed, which kept the engagement rolling. The most telling shift was how JayZ's name started disappearing from direct mentions. People didn't need to say it anymore. The implication carried enough weight. When a figure looms, this large without speaking, it reminds everyone why certain names carry automatic gravity. By the end of this phase, the narrative had fully flipped. This wasn't about what JimJones said. It was about what Uncle Murda established. A line. A reminder. A quiet enforcement of rules hip-hop pretends don't exist until someone crosses them. And that's when the tension stopped feeling like internet chatter and started feeling like unfinished business. Because moments like this don't end loudly. They wait. They resurface later, in interviews and lyrics, inside comments that suddenly make sense months down the line. Murda didn't just defend 50 Cent, he reset the room. And when a room gets reset, the next move carries more weight than the first. When the dust finally settled, it didn't disappear, it reorganized. This is the phase people mistake for resolution, when in reality it's recalibration. No trending alerts, no viral clips looping every 10 minutes. Just a quiet shift in how names move through conversations and how freely people choose their words. In hip-hop, that shift is everything. JimJones wasn't erased. He wasn't publicly shamed into silence. What happened was more surgical. His comments stopped being debated and started being referenced. That's the difference between controversy and consequence. When something becomes a reference point, it's no longer about right or wrong. It's about memory. And hip-hop has a long one. Uncle Murda's response aged fast and aged well. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was disciplined.
He didn't chase the moment. He didn't stack follow-ups.
He didn't escalate when the internet begged him to. He said what he said and let the culture do the rest. That restraint turned his words into policy. The most telling detail was how JayZ's name continued to hover without ever needing to be said again. His absence became the loudest presence in the room. When a figure carries that much gravity, silence becomes confirmation. The culture didn't need Jay to respond. It already knew the answer. And then there was 50 Cent, still quiet, still watching. That silence became a mirror. People projected their own interpretations onto it. Some said he was satisfied. Others said he was calculating. A few insisted he was just waiting for the right moment. In reality, his lack of response did the most damage. It validated Murda's check without adding noise. Industry eyes noticed. Not publicly, not performatively, but strategically. Conversations behind closed doors adjusted. Interviews became more careful. Legacy debates softened their edges. Nobody announced a rule change, but everyone felt it. When boundaries are enforced calmly, they don't need reminders. JimJones' next appearances carried new weight. Every interview question felt sharper. Every casual comment got replayed with added scrutiny. Not because he was under attack, but because the room had been reset. Once that happens, the margin for loose talk shrinks fast. Supporters framed the moment as growth, critics framed it as overdue. Neutral observers saw it for what it was, a reminder that confidence doesn't override context. All three interpretations live side by side, which is exactly how stories stay alive without exploding. Murda, meanwhile, gained something subtle but powerful. Credibility beyond the moment? Not as a loud defender, but as a custodian of cultural memory. Someone who understands that hip-hop isn't just bars and numbers, it's lineage, timing, and knowing when to speak so the room listens. The commentary world didn't close the file. Analysts cited the moment in other debates. Creators referenced it as shorthand. Remember what happened last time became a sentence that didn't need explanation. That's when a moment becomes infrastructure, supporting other arguments. Without being the focus itself, what made this stick wasn't drama. It was the lack of it. No diss records, no insults, no reconciliation tour. Just a clean correction that didn't require applause. In a culture addicted to spectacle, restraint felt radical. And here's the part most people missed. This wasn't about silencing JimJones. It was about reminding everyone else where the lines are. Hip-hop doesn't cancel conversations, it contextualizes them. And once context is restored, it governs everything that follows. As weeks passed, the story didn't resurface constantly. It didn't need to, it waited. Moments like this don't chase attention. They wait for the next comparison, the next interview, the next time someone reaches too far without checking the room first, because that's how hip-hop polices itself when it's functioning properly. Not with volume, but with memory. With moments that quietly reset expectations and remind people that certain names aren't discussion starters, they're endpoints. So this chapter doesn't close with an apology or a punchline. It closes with awareness, with caution, with a culture that just got reminded, again, that hierarchy isn't about ego. It's about history. And the real suspense isn't whether JimJones responds again. It's whether anyone else decides to test that line now that it's been drawn so clearly, because the next person who steps into that space won't just be responding to Uncle Murda. They'll be responding to the silence that followed and the weight it carried. Now, don't click off acting like this was just another rap debate that'll disappear by tomorrow. If you stayed till the end, you already know this wasn't about one comment, one interview, or one name drop. This was about knowing the room, respecting the weight certain names carry, and what happens when someone speaks a little too freely around cultural monuments. So let's talk in the comments. Was Uncle Murda right to step in and draw that line, or did JimJones have every right to speak his truth without being checked? And be honest, did this moment remind you that hip-hop still has unspoken rules? Or do you think those rules are outdated and overdue for a rewrite? Don't tiptoe. Say it straight. Now smash that like button like it just mentioned JayZ in the wrong conversation and forgot who was listening. Every like tells the algorithm this wasn't background noise. This was culture correcting itself. In real time, hit subscribe if you're tired of surface-level rap coverage that pretends moments like this don't matter. Over here, we break down the subtext, the silence, the power moves, and the things artists don't say but everyone feels. No PR spin. No fake neutrality. Just real talk about real moments. Because today it's Uncle Murda checking JimJones. Tomorrow it's another legacy debate. Another name getting